Hollowcrest High was like any other typical high school during the day. Bustling hallways, chatty students, and the ever-present aroma of cafeteria food lingering in the air. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the empty corridors, the school took on an entirely different atmosphere. On this particular night, a storm raged outside, the howling wind and pounding rain adding an eerie soundtrack to the events unfolding within. Inside the school, a group of students had gathered for an after-hours study session in the library. Among them were Emily, a studious girl with a penchant for the supernatural, Mark, a jock with a hidden interest in ghost stories, Sarah, the class president with a fearless demeanor, and Jason, the resident class clown who was always up for an adventure. As they buried themselves in textbooks and notes, the intercom crackled to life, causing them to jump in surprise. Principal Thompson's voice filled the room, tense and urgent. "Attention all students and faculty. We are initiating the lockdown procedure due to reports of a potential threat in the area. This is not a drill. Please remain calm and stay in your designated locations until further notice." The group exchanged nervous glances, but they knew the drill. Lockdowns were not uncommon, especially in a town plagued by rumors of strange occurrences and unexplained disappearances. They pushed the heavy tables against the door, barricading themselves in the library as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the empty hallways. Hours passed, the storm outside showing no signs of abating. The students tried to distract themselves with idle conversation and whispered theories about what could be happening outside. But as the night wore on, tension hung thick in the air, each creak of the building and distant rumble of thunder sending shivers down their spines. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the intercom crackled to life once more, Principal Thompson's voice trembling with fear. "Attention all students and faculty. There has been a breach in the security system. I repeat, there has been a breach. Stay hidden and do not make any noise. Help is on the way." The group exchanged panicked glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. Something was terribly wrong, and they were trapped in the heart of it. As they huddled together in the dimly lit library, the students listened intently for any sign of danger. The storm outside raged on, the wind howling like a chorus of tormented souls. With each passing moment, the sense of unease grew stronger, suffocating them like a thick fog. Emily's mind raced with thoughts of the supernatural. Could this be the work of the restless spirits rumored to haunt the halls of Hollowcrest High? She had always been fascinated by the paranormal, but now, faced with the very real possibility of encountering something beyond the realm of the living, fear gnawed at her insides. Mark, usually the epitome of confidence, found himself gripping the edge of the table with white-knuckled intensity. He had heard the stories whispered in hushed tones, tales of strange sightings and unexplained phenomena that plagued the town for generations, but he had always dismissed them as nothing more than superstition. Now, as darkness enveloped the school like a shroud, he couldn't help but wonder if there was some truth to the legends after all. Sarah, ever the voice of reason, tried to keep her composure, but the fear gnawed at her like a relentless beast. She was the class president, the one everyone looked to for guidance in times of crisis. But now, faced with an unknown threat lurking in the shadows, she felt utterly powerless. And then there was Jason, the self-proclaimed class clown whose jokes and antics had always served as a source of levity in even the darkest of times. But now, as the weight of their situation bore down upon them, his usual bravado faltered, revealing the raw fear that lay beneath the surface. As the minutes stretched into hours, they remained huddled together in silence, each lost in their own thoughts and fears. Outside, the storm raged on, a symphony of chaos that mirrored the turmoil within their hearts. Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence, a soft, eerie whisper that seemed to echo from the darkness itself. The students froze, their hearts pounding in their chests as they strained to listen. "What was that?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her own heart. "Don't know," Mark replied, his voice trembling. "But I don't think we're alone in here." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she scanned the shadows, her mind racing with thoughts of all the horror stories she had heard growing up in this town. "We need to get out of here." It was a typical Thursday afternoon at Eastwood High School. Students were bustling through the hallways, eagerly anticipating the final bell that signaled the start of the weekend. Among them was Lily, the timid sophomore with a penchant for books and a fear of the dark. As she made her way to her last class of the day, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that seemed to settle over the school like a heavy fog. The bell rang, echoing through the halls, and Lily took her seat in English class. Mr. Thompson, the teacher, launched into a discussion about Shakespeare, but Lily found it hard to concentrate. The feeling of unease had grown stronger, gnawing at her insides like a hungry beast. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life, cutting through the air with a sharp static noise. The principal's voice boomed through the speakers, cold and detached. "Attention all students and staff. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Eastwood High School is now in lockdown. Please remain in your classrooms with the doors locked until further notice." Panic swept through the classroom like wildfire. Students exchanged frightened glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. Lily's hands trembled as she reached for her phone, desperate for any information about what was happening. But the screen remained blank, devoid of any messages or notifications. It was as if the outside world had ceased to exist, leaving them trapped in a bubble of fear and uncertainty. Hours passed, each one stretching into an eternity of silence and darkness. Lily huddled in her seat, her mind racing with thoughts of escape and survival. But every time she mustered the courage to move, a wave of paralyzing fear washed over her, holding her captive in its icy grip. As night fell, the school plunged into darkness, the only source of light coming from the faint glow of emergency exit signs. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into sinister shapes that seemed to leer at Lily from the corners of her vision. And then, amidst the darkness, came the whispers. At first, they were barely audible, little more than a soft murmur on the edge of hearing. But as the night wore on, they grew louder and more insistent, echoing through the empty halls like a chorus of lost souls. Lily pressed her hands over her ears, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers wormed their way into her mind, filling her with a sense of dread unlike anything she had ever known. She glanced around the classroom, her eyes wide with terror. The other students were huddled together, their faces pale and drawn with fear. But amidst the chaos, Lily noticed something strange. One by one, the students began to disappear. It was as if they were being swallowed by the darkness itself, leaving behind nothing but empty desks and echoing silence. Lily's heart raced as she realized she was alone, utterly and completely alone in the empty classroom. She stood up, her legs shaking beneath her, and stumbled towards the door. But as she reached for the handle, a voice whispered in her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "Run, Lily. Run while you still can." She froze, her blood running cold. It was a voice she knew all too well, a voice from her past that had haunted her dreams for years. Without a second thought, Lily turned and bolted from the classroom, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. She ran faster than she had ever run before, the whispers growing louder with each passing moment. As she rounded a corner, she came face to face with a figure standing in the shadows. It was Mr. Thompson, his eyes gleaming with madness as he beckoned her closer. "Lily," he whispered, his voice dripping with malice, "you can't escape. You belong to us now." With a scream of terror, Lily turned and fled, her heart pounding in her chest. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs could carry her no further, until at last she collapsed in a heap on the cold tile floor. And as the darkness closed in around her, She knew that she would never escape the whispering halls of Eastwood High School, for in the depths of the night, something sinister lurked, waiting to claim its next victim.